everybody, and welcome to a holiday edition of the Total Soccer Show, our weekend review. I am your host, Taylor Rockwell. Joining me for this very special episode is Mr. Ryan Bailey. Hello, Ryan.
Oh, hi, Tay-Tay. Very special. What's very special? Just that we're doing this on a day when we should not be working?
That is correct. It's the only way I can get myself into the happy, emotional mood required to record a weekend review while the rest of the city is shut down. And I mean that literally because the 3 places I went to get breakfast this morning all closed. Way to go, Richmond. Thanks for that.
Oh, boy. All 3 Starbucks, huh?
It was basically ever-expanding circles of okayedness. Like, it started with the places I really wanted to go and then just got larger and larger as I kept trying to find something that was open, eventually settling on 7-Eleven. Everyone's favorite place to go for breakfast. Yes, sir.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, me too. It goes back to the days when, I think before Daryl was vegetarian when we first started the show, the only place to eat, like, late night when we would get done recording was the 7-Eleven down the street. Thankfully, that is no longer the case, but that used to be the days of, like, the quarter-pound spicy Big Bite, which I guess I could eat when I was, like, 23 and 24 years old. If I ate that now, I think I'd have heartburn for, like, the next month and a half.
Quarter-pound spicy Big Bite.
Yeah, it's
You're gonna have to elaborate.
So what you do is you take, I guess, like, an intestinal casing, and you fill it with chemicals and everything that will hurt your stomach, plus, like, hot sauce, and then serve after sitting in, like, a rotating rack for between, like, 2 hours and 14 weeks, something like that.
Right. It sounds like they've got some Scottish cuisine going on there.
Exactly. That's what I always said about 7-Eleven, very Scottish cuisine. And we will be talking a little bit Scotland today in our weekend review. We've got Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, and as I said, some SPL, some MLS as well. But Ryan Bailey, I want to start with tennis, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So Ryan is covering tennis now, the tennis expert, and this is very much a question of ignorance, and I mean this genuinely. I'm curious about tennis. I saw the videos this week of, like, the 15-year-old female tennis player whose name I do not remember. What's the story there? Why is she the new media darling?
Well, she's 15 years old. Corey Gauff, a.k.a. Coco Gauff.
Okay.
Just that she's 15 and she's holding her own, and she did quite well at Wimbledon, and she did quite well at the US Open as well. And she played Naomi Osaka, who's the reigning US Open champion, and she's also very young, but Gauff is even younger. So it was just a nice little story, and they were both very pleasant to one another. So
yeah, that exchange seemed very lovely. And
it was really nice.
Yeah, so it got me a little bit back into tennis. I was like, okay, tennis, it's been a while. I think, strangely, the last time I was, like, super into tennis was when I was very young, and it was, like, the Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, like, back and forth. That was the last time I was, like, really watching tennis consistently. But maybe I'll try to get back onto your level and watch some more regularly. It can be fun. I mean, like, the US Open, I actually went to it once, and it's quite rowdy, like, because I used to go to Wimbledon every year, and it's quite prim and proper. And then you go to New York. No,
like, people like during points are on their phones and are, hey, I'm talking here, and that kind of New York stuff going on.
I am not surprised to hear that Wimbledon is prim and proper. That makes sense. Is that where you were drinking Pimm's, or is that somewhere else?
Well, that could be one of many places, but yes.
Weren't you doing that recently?
Yeah, I actually went to the Wimbledon men's final this year. That's because I'm fancy.
You are fancy, which is why we have you here to talk all things soccer. We're going to start with the Premier League, as we tend to do. And let's start with the North London derby. Ryan texted me NLD in his running order from the weekend, and it took me a while to remember that that's what that was. Arsenal 2, Tottenham 2. I genuinely don't know if this game went as I expected or if one of these two teams should be happy with the result. Ryan, what do you make of this one overall, given that, like, we kind of have expectations that Tottenham will be safely top 3, but then they've struggled already this season. Arsenal, we had questions about their quality coming in and were they going to gel and how are they going to perform as a unit and will they be top 4? Do you think in the end both teams are okay with a 2-2 draw?
Well, I think if Tottenham fans had gone into this one and you told them they get a draw out of it at the end, they'd have bitten your hand off taking that. Given their record there, I think Tottenham have had one win at Arsenal in the past 26 years. Arsenal have a very good record in the North London derby in September's, apparently. Haven't been beaten in one since 1969. They also, Arsenal, this is a fun fact, they have the highest win percentage in September of any Premier League club. Didn't see that one coming, but that's true.
I really did not see that one coming.
No, I know, right? But so when Tottenham went 2-up, I was like, this is not going how I thought it was. To be honest, I expected kind of a narrow Arsenal win, given the form that Tottenham have showed so far this season, and given also the form that Arsenal have shown this season. So, but like when Spurs were 2-0 up, it was kind of like they didn't really deserve to be 2-0 up at this point, did they?
No, and in fact, I was really confused by it because I did not watch this one live. I watched the full replay after the fact, and somehow I had remembered that it finished 1-1. So when the penalty is awarded and as it's about to be taken, I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, is VAR going to pull this back? Like, how does this happen? And for like a minute or two after it was 2-0, I thought, oh, okay, this is definitely coming back somehow. Something has gone wrong. And then I slowly realized that maybe I had it wrong. But I also agree with you, the more general point that it did feel not necessarily against the run of play by any stretch, but just more so that 2-0 felt harsh because you saw the moments when Arsenal could have found a way through, probably should have found a way through, and were kind of executing their game plan. Even if there were the moments of Unai Emery like pulling at his neck, his loose neck skin, which I really didn't need to see. They had like a 20-second close-up of that. I was just like, that's too much Unai Emery for me. But other than that, I thought Arsenal looked good in those opening 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just got that mental image now.
It was a lot. It was a lot for me. I don't know what it is about necks. I have like a weird neck sensitivity apparently, but him just pulling that over and over again, I was like, dude, you don't need to just go full turkey. Don't do that to yourself.
Full turkey. Oh, wow. So whose necks particularly offend you, for the record?
Oh, see, I think it's just any time there's like it's like an older fella. I know I'm gonna get there, so I'm not trying to like throw shade here, but it's an older fella wearing a slightly too small like dress shirt so that it forces the skin out even more. So it's like a weird neck muffin top. It's a thing that no one needs to see.
I think don't Trump and Mitch McConnell have that going on?
Oh, yes, they do. Yeah, yes, they certainly do. Mitch McConnell leads the list. I'm sorry I didn't come up with that sooner. Thank you for that assist, Ryan Bailey. This is why I need you on the show at all times. Yes, we should probably talk soccer. We've now talked neck waddles and tennis. Let's talk soccer.
But like the two Spurs goals were basically I felt were came essentially from Arsenal errors. Like the way that Son for the first goal.
Yep.
The way that Son turned David Luiz despite being about 3 yards away from David Luiz. It's like he wasn't even trying to get him. He was like 40 yards up the pitch. That seemed very odd for another instance in which Lewis has not covered himself in glory this season. That's still not working out of me. That move, surprise, surprise. And then that was a gift of a goal. And then the second one, the Xhaka penalty. Have you ever seen a more stupid foul in the Premier League? I couldn't think of another example of a dumber foul to commit. Like, Son wasn't even winding up for a shot at that point. Nope. It was like, what on earth was he doing?
Daryl and I often have like the conversation about if you're watching a match that you haven't yet seen, like if you're not watching it live, do you want to know what happened? And this to me is an example of why I often don't want to know, why I want to approach games from a blind perspective, because I knew there was probably going to be a bad call on Xhaka, or there was going to be a bad play involving Xhaka. Excuse me, definitely not a bad call. So when the penalty happened, it's one of those like, oh yeah, it's a penalty. Like, sure, yeah, should have done that. Definitely a penalty. And then when you like type that into the running order, I was like, well, let me go back and look at this again, because I was just sort of like, it's a bad penalty. No, yeah, it's real stupid. It's really, really, really stupid. It's one of the dumbest ones I can think, because ball is gone. It doesn't need to happen. On top of that, the announcer makes a good point of this, I think, in the moment that like it's really risky to go to ground in the penalty area, especially when there are numbers on both sides in that penalty area, because so easily you can make contact and not mean to, and it's always going to be given because there's contact, because there's VAR. But to go in that recklessly with the ball gone and almost like go over the top making sure that he makes connection, like if I didn't know any better, I'd be like, maybe there was some money on that one, because he went out of his way to concede a penalty there.
Well, we know he's got a dumb foul in him, but the strangest thing about it is no card at all for that, because it was kind of stugs up. I could easily see him getting a red card for that.
I mean, it was reckless, certainly, and it was out of control. I feel like that definitely necessitates a yellow card in my book. Maybe the official thought because the penalty had been awarded that was enough, but I mean, that makes sense when it comes to like double jeopardy, but not when it comes to giving a yellow for a reckless tackle. That does, I mean, you could see the shin go back, like not the shin, but the leg goes backward. Like you can see the impact. It's a dangerous, reckless challenge. To me, that definitely should have been yellow, at the very least. But like, you're absolutely right that in these moments in the first 40 minutes or so, there were moments of Arsenal looking okay, and then there were those spots where it was just like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I was afraid of. It's David Luiz not really being quick enough to pay attention to Son finding that little gap. It's Xhaka making kind of silly decisions in the worst possible moments, and it was those sort of familiar concerns about Arsenal coming back, and suddenly Tottenham are 2-0 up. What I found particularly interesting was that Arsenal were then able to fight back, which, as you said, given their record, given their history, not necessarily that surprising, but I think it's another... I don't want to just do the thing of we break down a game by talking about one team, but it does feel to me like a huge part of this is Tottenham having a lot of concerns of their own, and especially with the goal for who scores the second goal for Arsenal?
Aubameyang.
Thank you. Yeah, with the run from Guendouzi to set that one up, just how he's able to sort of oh, okay, I still have time and space. Oh, okay, I still have time and space. I found that to be particularly revealing with Spurs, that they can be lights out for most of the game, and then they'll just have these 1 or 2 minute chunks where they are sort of not quite quick enough to it. They don't quite step, and that's when you get punished by a very good team. And so it did feel like some of the stuff we've been talking about with Tottenham that has been problematic already this season kind of reared its ugly head, depending on your perspective, here again this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I actually thought, watching it, I thought Arsenal must have had about 70% possession here. It looks like they're being completely dominant. It wasn't quite, it was about 57, I think, if you look at the official figures, but it felt like they were being completely dominated, particularly when Arsenal were chasing those goals as well. And when you just mentioned Guendouzi there, just reminded me that I seem to remember there was a moment when he had a shot, and he already started running away celebrating. He was so sure that it got in. I think it was pushed just wide. I love it when players do that.
That's my favorite, when you can go back and see the players start to celebrate. Sometimes it's great when they've it's funny how that narrative is that when they score the screamer from 30 yards out and they're already celebrating, it's like he knew as soon as he hit it, it was going to be in the back of the net. You never really talk about that time when they run off celebrating and the ball does not go in, and then it was less of a he knew and more so he really, really hoped it was going to go in because it would have been a cool highlight moment.
Definitely, yeah. But having that kind of confidence in yourself, I think that's wonderful. I like that a lot. But yeah, so no shortage of problems at Tottenham, obviously, with dressing room unhappiness, and apparently Christian Eriksen's settled now because he can't get away until at least January, apparently. But then we had injury issues with this team as well, obviously with the right back being the main problem here. Imagine being Sergio Aurier right now and having Davinson Sanchez come in and play right back in your stead.
Yeah.
That's not a good confidence booster for him, is it?
No, I'd imagine not. And it feels like there is going to be, even more positional instability, uncertainty there for Tottenham. Although, you're right, they've held on to their key players for yet another transfer window. Yeah. So it does feel like they now have to settle, and maybe that does get us back to a little bit more of the Spurs we've come to expect. But overall, Ryan, I found this game really, really, really enjoyable, because even though there were those mistakes, even though there were some strange decisions, you saw both sides of it. That for Arsenal's first goal, which Lacazette scores, it is David Luiz who steps in when it seems like Tottenham have cleared and wins the header to keep the play alive. And so not necessarily redeems himself, but you see that other aspect of David Luiz where he will come through and fight for everything and try to make something happen. And here he does, and it's a scrappy win from David Luiz. It's good work from Pepe and a good finish from Lacazette. But so it's those moments of hard work and then skill combining is maybe what Arsenal have lacked in years past, and feels like maybe they have a bit more of this season. That said, it is still both of these teams outside of the top four at this point, which I guess isn't as surprising, but it still is pretty surprising that both of them find themselves out. Arsenal in 5th, Tottenham in 9th, Manchester United in 8th, which leads me to my next question, unless, Ryan, you wanted to talk any more about the North London derby?
No, I just wanted to make a note that you haven't put the Man United game on our running order.
No, I did not. And the less said about that one,
conveniently
the better.
Left that one off.
I certainly did. Yeah, they were garbage once again. But with that in mind, we can talk more about that or not. But with that in mind, it does feel like we are, obviously the Leicester title campaign, that one was an outlier, definitely included. But for the first time in a long time, it feels like maybe we're in a position where we might see a non-traditional Big Six team find their way into certainly the top 6 spots, but potentially even the top 4. Am I just getting too excited about the weirdness of the beginning of the season? Do you fully expect it to kind of even out over the course of the year, or is there a chance that maybe we do see somebody like Everton or Leicester or Wolves finish inside that top 4, if not that top 6?
Or definitely inside the top 6. I think those Everton, Wolves, Leicester chasing pack have to be aiming for at least that, because that's the very minimum they could achieve, and they'll never have a better chance at doing it. I mean, you look at Arsenal and the inconsistency it's showing. Look at Chelsea, the way that, they're certainly quite inconsistent. Look at Man United, who look like they'll be lucky to get in the top 8 at the moment. Yeah. Even Tottenham look like they're going to have a sort of odd season at this point. And I know it's early doors, obviously, but you have to think the chances. I mean, I haven't even checked the betting odds, but look at the odds of Leicester getting back into the Champions League. That's got to be worth a punt at this point, isn't it? Surely.
I mean, especially, because if you look at, you've got Liverpool City. We know those two are going to be in the top 4. I think it's safe to say. I don't know, Daryl. I don't know, Ryan. I don't want to be too controversial here. Would you agree Liverpool City probably in the top 4?
I'd say there's a good chance.
All right. Well, and so then right now, worth noting, Leicester on 8. And then, I mean, you've still got, Wolves are on 3 points. They're currently 17th. But it's still 5-point difference. Not that big because it's so early in the season. But yeah, I mean, Arsenal and Spurs, as we already talked about, have had their moments of vulnerability, have looked like they're kind of weaker in certain positions and are having to already fill spots and see what they can make work. Manchester United, very much the same in a number of different ways. I feel like there's going to be a lot more drama to come with Manchester, the red Manchester team. And then Chelsea, the same. Chelsea struggling this weekend with another draw at home, I believe, to Sheffield United. So it does seem like you could back some teams that are a bit more settled and a bit more consistent with their lineup choices, with their managers, to make it a little bit deeper of a run, especially if you're looking at a team like Leicester, who seem to have bought into Brendan Rodgers' system, seem to be enjoying playing for him, and seem to be getting the results as well, have not yet lost, 2 wins, 2 draws, hence the 8 points. So, I think we may well see a season where we do start to see some of the teams that we always sort of look at as eventually they're going to fall away, similar to Leicester when they won the title, kind of not falling away and hanging in. That said, in late November, when Leicester are 12th and Manchester United, are probably 13th, but when Arsenal and Tottenham are 3rd and 4th, maybe I'll eat these words.
Maybe so, but it's just making me think back to, I mean, it's a fool's errand to do pre-season predictions, but we all do them, and all the major outlets do them. And I was thinking, obviously everyone had City and Liverpool at the top. The majority of outlets had Tottenham in 3rd. And then there was a sort of a mix-up for 4th place. I had Man United in there because I thought it was definitely theirs for the taking, looking at the the vulnerabilities of Arsenal and Chelsea. And I just don't feel that way anymore, obviously. I feel if I had to redo that, if I had to recast that top 4, I'd probably still go for Tottenham in 3rd, but I think I'd put Leicester in 4th.
Yeah, I think that's probably safe. I would struggle between Leicester and Arsenal right now, but I think I have more question marks about Arsenal because I've seen them more often this season already, because they are a bigger team who generate more headlines. I mean, David Luiz being there alone makes me pay attention for right and wrong reasons. But I take your point that it does seem like that's Arsenal's spot to lose right now, because as an example, looking at Manchester United, there have been the kind of talks for years that squad needs a complete overhaul. And you start to see it this summer when they're moving out. I mean, Lukaku obviously moves for a lot of money, and that's maybe a separate issue. But looking at some of the clearouts with Darmian and Sanchez and Antonio Valencia being allowed to leave, and it goes on, Chris Smalling, and goes on from there. But then you look at the depth of that squad, and it's really not that deep. It's really kind of vulnerable and kind of threadbare, and has a lot of inexperience, and then almost too much inexperience of the wrong kind in certain positions. Fred still exists, for example. I think with all that said, it's a lot of teams who historically look very strong are dealing with lots of different issues in lots of different ways, and it does open the door for a team like Leicester and potentially maybe Arsenal. I mean, but that's still a big name team. I want Wolves and Leicester as 3 and 4. Can we make that happen?
I'd like it, and it's either way. This is all very exciting for the neutral fan. I know we're not necessarily going to focus on United, but I just do like this statistic. Since Solskjaer was permanently appointed, United's league record: 1-3, drawn 4, lost 5, goal difference -4. They've had 1 clean sheet.
My only complaint with that is that it felt like goal difference needed to be -6 to make that 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it would have been really, really perfect. Unless you're a Manchester United fan, in which case it's the absolute worst.
Correct. Yeah. Isn't that fun, though?
Ryan, so you have no vested interest in Manchester United. I'm guessing people will not be surprised at all to find out that we end up talking about them in the Weekend Review, because that's what I do. like, for you, is this a fun thing for Manchester United, who had all the success and who had, I feel like most of the time when you met somebody in the United States, there was a period of time when you'd ask them who they support. They supported Manchester United.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that made you roll your eyes a little bit. I have experienced the eye roll in my face several times. Not from you, but just generally speaking. So is it sort of nice, like, I never know how to pronounce that word, like schadenfreude, to like enjoy the sort of downfall of Manchester United? Or is it more fun to have like a dominant team to challenge the other bigger teams?
I am wary of exercising too much Schadenfreude, definitely.
Thank you.
But also, my default setting is to always cheer for the underdog. I always want the small team to do better. So when a Man United winner, a Goliath, is felled by a David, I always think that's a great thing. And it's not just because it makes Man United fans unhappy; it's because it makes a smaller team happy. That's mainly my thought process.
But also makes me a little bit sad.
I don't want to see you sad, Tay-Tay. I want you to be happy.
Well, I believe that, and I appreciate that, even if I don't really believe that. But I also do believe in today's sponsor. It's our friends over at SeatGeek. Ryan Bailey, I know you are often attending the concerts. You're quite the musical person. But you can use SeatGeek to help you attend those concerts and make it very easy. They have over 50,000 5-star reviews. They pull together millions of tickets from all over the web. They rate each deal on a scale of 1 to 10, and they have an interactive map to help you figure out where those seats are going to be. So if you do attend as many concerts or live events as Ryan Bailey, you can just, it's a couple clicks and it's done, and you don't even have to worry about it anymore.
Very much so. It's not just live music. They've got the sports on there. They've got the comedy. They've got everything you can want tickets for. I've got the app on my phone. The app is pretty nifty. I do like the desktop version as well, but the app is really good too. I think it's the fastest, it's the easiest way to get tickets. So you should probably go do that and join my summer concert series. My latest one, I'm going to see Hootie and the Blowfish and Bare Naked Ladies because I refuse to leave 1996.
Wow.
I'm going to see them this week.
What was Bare Naked Lady? That wasn't It's Ben, was it?
Yeah, it's Ben.
That is them? Oh, boy. Yeah. All right. That's terrific stuff, Ryan. They couldn't fit Smash Mouth in there? They were too busy?
So I get this. I'm going to some like barbecue festival, and the lineup is it's Fuel, Tonic, Lifehouse. Like every one of these sort of tier 3 rock band from the 90s is playing at this festival. It's going to be glorious. That's in a few weeks as well.
And if you want to attend that glorious festival or any other 90s band reunion concert, you can do so. And SeatGeek will even give you $10 off your first purchase. All you need to do is use our promo code. So download the SeatGeek app today. Use promo code TSS for $10 off your first purchase. As Ryan mentioned, it's not just concerts. It's any live performance, sporting event, comedy show, theater, you name it. And just use that promo code TSS for $10 off your first purchase. Thank you very much to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's episode. Ryan, you've made me sad talking about the Premier League. Can we instead talk about the Bundesliga for a moment?
Yeah. Let's do it.
It was.
Why did it make you sad? Because your team's not doing very well.
Because it's just kind of an expectation at this point. Like, it really was. All right, we're back on United for a moment. Because it really was that, like, even when they were up 1-0, I was like, yeah, they're still going to concede. Like, that's just what they do. They don't keep clean sheets. And it still is the case that, like, I fail to see them sort of really dominating a game or completely taking it over. And so it feels like they keep having these moments of, like, oh, we're doing fine, but then we let the team back in and then we kind of change the game plan or it doesn't look nearly as unified. And so once I started seeing Victor Lindelof start dribbling forward, I was like, oh, here we go. This is where it comes from. And and sure enough, that's where it happens. So it's just more the, like, reminder that as other teams are doing interesting things and making smart moves and bringing through young players successfully and having a coach and a front office direction that makes sense. The team that I support, less so. It's just the inevitability that they're going to cough it up has become a super fun thing.
Let me flip your question onto you. Mm-hmm. If Liverpool were having the kind of time that Man United are having right now, would you get the Schadenfreude tingles?
I don't think so. I think it would be like. This isn't quite what you're asking, but my answer is only if it was like Man City at this point, because I don't really have the animosity towards Liverpool because so many of my friends are Liverpool fans, more so than they are Manchester United fans, that I would want a little bit of happiness for them, but I would also not be as like gleeful in their downfall as if City just completely imploded because of nobody was rooting for Manchester City outside of people who were from Manchester in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, so the folks that now root for them, I sort of look at them the way probably people looked at me when I said I rooted for Manchester United, and I'm okay with that.
Very good. That was a concise answer. Thank you.
I try, my friend. I try. But also, I hope neither team wins the title this year. That's what I always root for. In the Bundesliga, we had some surprise results, including a surprise goal for a certain American. We'll talk about that one in a moment. But I want to talk about Union Berlin 3, Borussia Dortmund 1. Not a result I saw coming at all, Ryan. I'm guessing you did not either. Did you get a chance to watch some of this game? And if so, did you enjoy the pyrotechnics at halftime?
I didn't see, I watched extended highlights. Okay. I did not see pyrotechnics, but what I did see was the fact that I want to go to that stadium so much. The Stadion an der Alten Forsterei, as we've mentioned before. Yeah. It just looks like the action's really close to the pitch. It looks very sort of tall and packed in there. Did you know that they did an expansion of that stadium in 2013? Literally, it was built by the fans. Volunteers, like a few thousand fans, helped build the stadium themselves. How cool is that?
It's very cool, and it's a very cool stadium, and you've got everybody wearing red and white, so it looks nice and unified. And then there was, I believe, Dortmund fans as well had like an organized thing where they set off a bunch of flares, but then so too did the Union fans, and it was just very cool to see basically half the stadium on fire in a non-threatening, non-terrifying way. But then you had like there was almost a moment when you couldn't see a goal kick being taken because there was so much smoke, and I think Union's second goal sort of comes around at the time that there is a bunch of smoke on the field. So for a moment, I was obsessed with the idea that, like, did the smoke play a part? Could people not see anything as a result? But that wasn't necessarily the case. But I totally agree. I went and showed my wife the highlights of this game solely to say, hey, do you want to take a trip to Berlin sometime this season? Because I really want to see them play live. Yeah,
it just looks fantastic. It looks like a really good atmosphere they were creating in there. As we know, the Bundesliga is famous for those at the best of times, but what a great moment for these guys. Their first ever Bundesliga win here. They had 26% of possession in this game. 26%, and they got a 3-1 win. Obviously that's a lot more damning for Dortmund than it is praise for Berlin, perhaps, but they had 15 shots to Dortmund's 13 as well. So, and Dortmund only had 2 shots on target, and it's for me, this felt like another example, and it's something we've seen a few times in the Premier League this season, of a big established side getting turned over by a small, physical, less expansive side on sort of unexpectedly, and it's happened quite a few times this season already, hasn't it?
It has, and with that in mind, we've talked about this. I talked about this last week with like some of the smaller tier Premier League teams kind of setting up blueprints for how to handle larger opposition. Here, I think we have a pretty good one. Now, historically, Dortmund don't do very well against promoted sides. Royce SZN on Twitter pointed out they've only won 2 of their 8 games against newly promoted teams since 2016. 7 points out of a possible 24. That might have helped them, say, last season when they maybe needed a few points to win the title. But it felt like what Union did, you're absolutely right, very small percentage of possession, but at the same time, they did try to play against Dortmund. They did have some really nice passing moves. They tried to go at Dortmund, and it felt like they tried to combine technical skill with physicality when the situation required. They went for very designed set pieces. That's where the first goal comes from. It's a like very much set, like drawn out, like specified set piece that ends up working to that extent. The third goal also kind of a result of a set piece. It's a poorly cleared header that ends up being a goal. Second is a very bad giveaway from Manuel Akanji, who gets under pressure, and that's another thing Union did, was kind of put Dortmund under pressure when they saw the opportunities. And it felt like this combination of sit deep, counter aggressively, but also try to like don't just have like one player run with the ball as fast as they can. It sort of felt like when they saw the counterattack on, they sent those numbers forward and kind of risked it a little bit, and it ended up working out. And for Dortmund, it seems like it's a little bit more of the same, that like it's a team that we expected to come out, kind of hit the ground running, blow everybody away, and come December, it's like they've won every single game. Munich have won every single game, or like Munich have drawn 1 game, so now there's a 2-point gap, and it's going to be this race. And then there are these moments in these games when it feels like Dortmund still are sort of that old Dortmund, that they don't get off the ground. The first 20 minutes were very sluggish from Dortmund and from Union to some extent, but I think they were matching what was being presented to them. But this game, definitely reduced my hype a little bit for the title race to come. I'm not saying that it's like Bayern Munich's won. There were definitely some people on the internet I saw making that argument. But I think this weekend kind of tempered some of my expectations in a couple of different leagues for what I thought might be the case for, say, Tottenham and Arsenal, and also maybe for Dortmund. Maybe Dortmund just need to get it together a little bit if they want to keep challenging Bayern Munich.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I saw those arguments as well. Like could be really damaging for Dortmund's title run. But you've got to remember how bad Munich were in the first half of last season as well.
Exactly.
So it is very early doors. I'm just looking up the referee in this game was Dr. Felix Brecht.
Yeah.
Doctor.
This surprises you?
He's also a lawyer.
Yeah. He is I only know him because he is so recognizable. He is, I think, like Germany's like top tier official. You see him at the World Cup all the time.
Yeah.
You see him in the Champions League.
That's right.
I did not know he was a doctor or a lawyer, but it feels very German, in my opinion, to like have a referee who's also has a doctorate and is also a lawyer. That just feels like a very like, oh yeah, of course, I just did that in my spare time. It was no problem.
Hang on, he's not like Doogie Howser and also like a hotshot lawyer. He's a qualified doctor of law. I've just looked it up.
Okay, he wrote his
doctorate about sport.
Even so, the Germans that I've interacted with here in the U.S. and then abroad, it is always this very nonchalant air of like, oh yeah, like I like designed a car for Volkswagen. It was no big deal. I just did it. Like it's just a fun thing I do sometimes. Like what? Excuse me? Like, oh yeah, I just like manage all of Germany's handball leagues. It's not a big deal. Like it's very hand wavy to things that feel like they should be major accomplishments. So yes, of course, the center official here is also a qualified lawyer / legal doctor, which also feels like it should be a show, Legal Doctors.
Legal Doctors. Dr. Bleich.
There we go. Well, your German's so good. Commiserations to Dortmund fans. Congratulations to Union Berlin. And thank you for that lovely, lovely stadium. I definitely want to go. Maybe Ryan and I will have to make a pilgrimage there sometime this season.
Let's do it.
Congratulations as well to Schalke, a 3-0 win over Hertha. And I was really relieved because I had my concerns about Schalke last week. That said, it took until the third goal for Schalke to actually have a Schalke player get on the score sheet. The first 2 goals were own goals. Schalke go up 2-0 without putting a shot on the frame. Then the third goal comes in. It's a rocket from Jean-Jo Kenny. Really, really well hit. I'm guessing Daryl got really excited about this one. But he's not here today to talk about it. So Ryan, I wanted to ask you, do you get as excited when like young English or British players do things on a global scale like the way Daryl does? Like Ademola Lookman playing for Leipzig a couple seasons ago. I think he's back there now, but when he was playing there, Daryl would get kind of excited. Jadon Sancho the same. Like he would always be kind of up for young Englishmen doing things. Do you have that same level of enthusiasm?
I think so. I think to a certain extent because historically, it's been very rare for Englishmen to go abroad. I mean, when I, there was a long time where there was no English players abroad at all, and then it was only like Owen Hargreaves abroad. And then when David Beckham went, it's like, David Beckham's in Spain. That's quite rare because it seems generally quite rare for Englishmen to go abroad. And obviously, there's quite a lot more of it going on now. So I like it, and I like seeing Jadon Sancho in the Bundesliga and John Joe Kenny. I just like people called John Joe as well. I like it's so scouse. I like it so much.
I forgot he was there, and I was like, John Joe, that's not German. Nice try, sir. You're clearly on loan from somebody. And to emphasize your point, like it was only a couple seasons ago when Joe Hart went to Torino, and that in and of itself was a big story about like, ooh, Joe Hart going to Italy. Like, why would you do such a thing? And it is strangely,
there's clubs in England he could play for.
Exactly. And then he realized that and immediately went back. But for one brief period, it was nice for him. And for one time yesterday, it was very nice for Weston McKennie. I felt like just very briefly that was one of his better games for Schalke in terms of him like doing well and also the system not leaving him vulnerable. I've seen him at a couple times. They're in a couple different games this season, looking very much like hung out, or he had to step out to like put out a fire. He had to deal with somebody else's mistake. And in this game, I think he was allowed to stay a bit more central, allowed to stay home a little bit more. Yes, he still stepped out. Yes, he still went on marauding runs because he's Weston McKennie. He almost sets up a goal at one point. I think the second goal actually comes about from him transitioning from the counter and like takes the ball 80 yards upfield, ends in an own goal, obviously. But it seemed like the system is starting to gel a little bit with Schalke, and that's making him look all the better. So for me, a person who does root for young Americans doing anything ever, yes, this was a game where I got pretty pumped for him, pretty happy for John Joe Kenny, pretty happy for 2 own goals, and happy for Schalke to get all 3 points.
Are you happy for David Wagner as well?
Yes, I am. Why not?
Good.
Let's be happy
Good
for
shot.
everybody.
Let's spread the happiness. One of the things I liked about this game as well, the first own goal, which was very unfortunate, got in the way of that sort of cutback cross, but it was scored by a player called N. Stark, which is just I love Game of Thrones references wherever I can find them, frankly.
My favorite thing about that one, I watched this a bunch, and I may be totally wrong, but when, like, in the lead up to that goal, moments before, it's Caligiuri is the one who forces the ball that ends in the own goal. He gets knocked over by Rekic, the defender for Hertha, and you can see him thinking he's going to get a free kick. He doesn't. It goes out for a throw-in instead. And Stambouli, the defender, comes into the shot about a couple seconds later, and I wrote it down, 16 straight seconds is screaming at Caligiuri for not fighting hard enough to keep that ball. Like, you see Stambouli grabbing the badge of Schalke and like pleading with him to be more aggressive and to work harder, to the extent you see Weston McKennie walk by and give him this sort of like, hey man, like, calm it down. Everything's fine. No need to scream. And yet, like, less than a minute later, it's basically Caligiuri who muscles through a defense and like slides to keep the ball in bounds and squares it, and that's when it gets turned in for the own goal. And he does so by like outworking Rekic to get to that. So I do feel like that narrative in there of like Stambouli like elevating and making people like pick up their intensity, I hope that's the case, because if so, it turns out that screaming at people totally works, and we should just do it all the time.
That's a good way of living your life, I suppose. Sure.
Yeah, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? Definitely not the worst possible takeaway. Right, final Bundesliga game I wanted to get to very briefly. Werder Bremen 3, Augsburg 2. I'm guessing it will come as no surprise that I want to talk about Werder Bremen's second goal, because it's scored by Josh Sargent, the greatest American goal scorer of all time, I believe now is what we're going with. I am still sort of at a loss on this one, because I cannot tell if this is an excellent series of like moments of skill, or if it was just kind of a freak moment of insanity that ended up working out. And I know my American bias is telling me that, no, it was all skillful, it was excellent, and it was improvisation. But I would like to know where you come down on this goal, because it's Josh Sargent basically settling a long ball, kind of settles into himself, and then flicks it over the goalkeeper and runs around, and then kind of insteps it into the goal. But some of that was a little bit luck. I think his first touch is maybe unintentional, but then he's able to recover. So Ryan, for you, is this moment of genius, or is this maybe fortuitous moment?
Are you asking me to burst your bubble right now? Because that's what I'm kind of leaning towards.
Are you? All right, let's do it.
Well, don't get me wrong. Very lovely finish. And I think once he got past the keeper, it was very nicely done. And obviously collecting the ball in the first place. But the fact that the first touch sort of cannons off his own chest, it just feels like an element of luck to it. As good as that goal was, I still think it's not a beautiful goal.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because the way I saw it initially was like, what a beautiful goal, a world-class goal, like, oh, such like technical skill. And he brings the ball down over the top. That is true. Like, he's able to settle it. It doesn't like go off of his toe and go out for a goal kick. So right there, we're already, doing okay. Yeah. But I take your point, though, that he settles it into his chest and then it kind of pops out, and then he's able to basically get a foot on it to lift it over the goalkeeper. And to me, that's the improvisation, which still requires technical skill. But I think the word you said there that's really key is like beautiful. And if he had settled it with one touch, lobbed the goalkeeper with another, and then finished with a third touch on the instep, then it's a beautiful goal. But that one little like off his chest and then he has to improv, it removes beautiful, and instead is like, it's a very, very good goal with some technical skill in there. Not necessarily a beautiful world-class goal, in my opinion.
Exactly. I think if that was Dennis Bergkamp, he would have brought it down on the tip of his toe and sort of tucked it away. That's the one.
Yes. So we can agree that Josh Sargent is not Dennis Bergkamp, but still scored a pretty good goal for Werder Bremen, and Americans should probably be excited about that, given the lack of options when it comes to a central striker for the U.S. national team. You good with that summary?
In principle, we can agree he is not Dennis Bergkamp. Yes,
okay.
I'll go that far. But it's been a great week for him, hasn't it? With his United States Mutant Ninja Turtle call up. He's only still a teenager. He's got his second career start for Werder as well. I think he's going places, isn't it? This is great stuff for him.
All right, and a ginger, no less. So we can all root for that as well, Ryan Bailey.
Sure, we can. I like a ginger.
I was just wondering if I was going to bring out any like strong feelings towards or against gingers from Ryan Bailey, but instead
we're going to talk about Scottish stuff later. So let's save it.
All right, let's save it instead. Let's talk about today's sponsor, Dollar Shave Club. When I talk about Dollar Shave Club, I want to stress the quality of their products for a moment. Daryl is not here, but that man loves the Dollar Shave Club Prep Scrub. I think because it's like his first introduction to exfoliation. Not that it's something that I am like very well versed in, but the way he's like, it's got little like tough stuff that cleans your skin. It's so amazing. Like he really, really enjoys it. And I think for Daryl to get that excited about a bathroom product is not a thing I am used to. He is not a man who talks to me about his grooming habits, his styling products, so that he routinely goes back to that prep scrub. I feel like that right there is evidence of the quality of the products coming through from Dollar Shave Club.
Very much so, yeah. And it's not just about razors, as you say there. They've got you covered from head to toe. They've got everything you need in the shower, for your shaving needs, for styling your hair, brushing your teeth. And Tay, we're going to need to expand on this one. They even have you covered for wiping your behind.
They do. They've got one wipe Charlie's. They've essentially got like wet wipes, very nice, high quality, like peppermint, like lavender wet wipes that are very nice for cleaning your undercarriage. If maybe the toilet paper's one ply in the area that you're living in, maybe that's not what you want. That's not giving you the comfort you need. Dollar Shave Club has you covered there.
Undercarriage is such a great term.
We've between Dollar Shave Club and Manscaped, we've really had to work on our euphemisms for shaving areas. Is I guess what I'm going to get to there.
Definitely so. But in all seriousness, one of the good things about Dollar Shave Club is they keep you automatically stocked up as well, and it doesn't matter the time scale you're using, whether it's once a month, a few times a year. They got you covered. When you need it, you get it, baby.
That's right. And right now you can put the quality of Dollar Shave Club's products to the test. Their Ultimate Shave Starter Set has basically everything you need for an amazing shave: the executive razor, shave butter, prep scrub, and post-shave dew. The best part is you can try it for just $5. Wow. After that, the restock box ships regular size products at regular prices.
So get your Ultimate Starter Set for just $5, as Tay says. The website you'll need to go to is dollarshaveclub.com/TSS. That's dollarshaveclub.com/TSS for your $5 starter pack. Sounds good to me, Taylor.
Sounds good to me, Rai. Thank you very much to Dollar Shave Club for sponsoring today's episode. Ryan, we've been in the Premier League. We've been in the Bundesliga. Shall we move briefly to Serie A?
Let's do some calcio.
All right, some calcio. Juve with a 4-3 win over Napoli. This might have been the strangest game of the weekend, even though there were lots of strange results. Juventus go up 3-0, then Napoli pull it back to 3-3, and then Juve, I'm going to say, luck into a 4-3 win. Ryan, where do you want to start with this one?
Lots of interesting stuff here. Yeah, both Napoli centre-backs getting on the score sheet, but for very different reasons, very unfortunately. I love the fact that Napoli only play 7-goal thrillers now. That seems to be
it seems that way, right?
That's all they do. And I love watching this iteration of Juventus. It seems like they're super positive now. Lots of pressing forward. It's kind of, this is what they can be, isn't it? And it's a little bit gung-ho, obviously, conceding 3 goals, little bit less what they were last season. But I like that. It seems a bit more cavalier, doesn't it?
It definitely does. But it also felt like it was a Juve team that, as I said, went up 3-0. Really, really great system of pressing. I like, for no reason other than because I enjoyed it so much. Like, I documented it. I took screenshots of when essentially they just force Napoli into doing exactly what Napoli don't want to do. They kind of pass themselves into a literal corner and have no out and end up losing the ball, and then Juve score straight from there. And that in of itself is a really good combination of, like, I think it's the one where Matuidi plays in Costa and Costa finds Ronaldo. Maybe it's the third goal. But just the pressure and how intense they were, like, causing Napoli problems made me think, like, oh, this is going to be 5 or 6-0. They're going to get some players out, Juve will, to rest them for games still to come. And then Carlo Ancelotti makes 2 changes at halftime. He brings on Chucky Lozano. He brings on Mario Rui. And Napoli pull 3 goals back. And that, to me, was what we talked about last week, to your point about, like, 7-goal thrillers, that with this Napoli team, they have so much attacking talent that they can change it up at halftime. Carlo Ancelotti obviously has that managerial acumen to make those changes. And they can come out and pull 3 back on a team like Juventus, who, even if they took their foot off the gas a little bit, are still Juventus. And that is why I think Napoli is going to be such a fun team to watch. That said, they won't get to play Matthias de Ligt every single week, and that may have been a key factor as well in this game.
Yeah, he didn't look so hot, did he?
No, he did not. He had a terrible second half, especially. He keeps Napoli players on side for one goal. I think on both free kick goals, the first and the third, he loses his mark. He falls on the ground, and then somebody else has to come in and foul for that leads to the second goal. So it was just really, really poor work from Matthias de Ligt in a way that you maybe expect him to be a bit more solid, given the money invested, but still, then it's easy to forget how young he is. And there were signs in this one of like, oh, right, still a little bit of ways to go before he is that kind of lockdown Giorgio Chiellini-esque defender.
Yeah, best new signing for Juventus, obviously Danilo, though, getting that first goal. He's on the field for about 30 seconds
That's
before
insane.
He got the goal.
It was crazy. and a good reminder of Napoli, when you do your design set pieces, which they did, they had, I think, 6 people forward, then they did like a short corner and 3 more people come into the screen, and it was basically supposed to be a like 10-yard back pass. Then that pass is driven across the top of the 18 where there's 3 Napoli players who are like late arriving, and then I think one of them is theoretically supposed to get a shot. But if that pass is under hit or the shot is blocked and then Juve kind of collect the ball, now it's 4v1, which is exactly what happened, and it's a quick counterattack. Juve able to score. But yes, that's not a bad way to make your debut like 15 seconds after coming on. So well done there. Less well done to Koulibaly, who, as you mentioned, did get his name on the score sheet, just not the way he expected. Of all the own goals we've already talked about and of all the own goals that happened this weekend, was that the worst own goal of the weekend?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Just because the splice off the shin kind of finish. The hardest part is that there were 5 Juve players offside when the free kick came in.
Yeah,
because none of them technically were involved in play because Koulibaly took care of it himself. The goal stood, which is so rough. That's such a rough way to lose.
It's so rough. And really, like, it goes against the, like, Hollywood narrative structure of, like, 3-0 down at halftime, you fight back to 3-3. And it's, as I said, it's Matthias de Ligt looking so sloppy that if they were a center back who like, okay, it was 3-0, then Napoli pull it to 3-3, this game is going to finish 4-3 with a center back making an own goal mistake. You would have thought it was probably Matthias de Ligt, and that's the kind of narrative. Instead, for Koulibaly, who's the rock of central defense, to kind of have it go off his left shin when he was just trying to clear the ball, and it goes perfectly into the goal. Not the way I saw this one going, but if this is how things are going to go in Serie A this season in terms of the title race and how close it might be, then I'm in for it. Then I'm all good for Serie A this year.
Definitely proving those people wrong who still think Serie A is all about boring 1-0 wins, basically, isn't it?
I mean, Napoli are certainly doing their part to remind people of that one. We should stay in Europe, though. More Serie A later on, but we didn't really want to get into like later on in terms of future weekend reviews. We didn't really want to get into like Rome Lazio. It finished 1-1, but neither one of us watched it. Neither one of us was that like invested in it. So instead, I want to talk about some other weird results because both Barcelona and Real Madrid drew this weekend. Barcelona with Osasuna, Villarreal drawing with Real Madrid late there. Ryan, what were you thinking from these 2 games? Which one did you find more surprising?
Probably, obviously both Archbishop Desmond 2-2 results, but probably Osasuna. Newly promoted Osasuna keeping Barcelona at home like that. It's just once again feeding into the narrative of they're looking lost for ideas without Messi. Obviously, they sort of bypassed that last week. The narrative fell away last week, but it's back on, baby. It's back on.
It really is.
It's just a very odd performance from them again. They didn't have a single shot on or off target in the first 20 minutes. Just a very odd one from them, wasn't it?
Yes, and I think if we're like going with developing narratives, as we have been so far in this show, like you're absolutely right that without Lionel Messi, you see some of the like pedestrian aspects of this squad. It's still Barcelona. They're still one of the, if not the best teams in the world. But like, it's just so interesting to see that when you don't have a player like Messi, who so clearly strikes so much fear into the heart of teams, and like an Osasuna team that, as you said, newly promoted, going up against Lionel Messi, even though they've done it before. But like, to go up against him, it always makes you a little bit more wary. You're a little bit nervous. You're a little bit aware of where he is at all times. And if you have 10% of your focus on one player, as like a team, then sorry, I just whacked my mic. I was so excited to talk about it. Then like you're not going to be as focused, and other things will happen. Other players will be able to score. If you remove Messi from the equation, you do see Barcelona. There were a couple different times when I saw Gerard Piqué do the thing we've seen him do, where he kind of strides forward with the ball, makes a penetrating run, and then he would put his foot on it and look around, and there just wasn't much movement. There wasn't a lot of mobility, and made me understand a bit more why Barca have really been back into the market for Neymar at time of recording. I mean, I guess the window is closed, so we can say confidently that deal has collapsed. Neymar stays with PSG. So what do you think happens next for either PSG and Neymar or for Barcelona this season?
Oh boy, those are two very separate questions, I suppose. But
you can answer whichever one you want, my friend.
It feels like now I finally understood this weekend why Barcelona were pushing so hard for Neymar, because I was sort of scratching my head about it.
Exactly.
And I was like, okay, now I get it. Now I see that when you're starting a 16-year-old who got his first, got that goal as well, who's Ansu Fati, who was very good. To be fair, came on as a substitute and got the goal. But yeah. I could see why they wanted to bring him back now, even despite the acrimonious way in which he left the club. As for his role at PSG, I mean, when does he get back in the team now? Does he roll straight back in now? I have no idea. I have no idea what happens at this point. Is he even in Paris? I don't know.
I know he's not. He's in Florida, I believe, because I think that's where Brazil are doing their national team training. So I think he's reported with Brazil. So he's somewhere in the Western Hemisphere right now. When he comes back, I would hope he doesn't go straight into it, but like that maybe is the test right there, because if he doesn't go straight in the lineup, but you don't hear anything about it, then maybe that's him showing like he can be conciliatory and can be a little bit contrite. If he comes back and maybe Tuchel doesn't start him right away and he instantly complains and goes public about his frustration, well, then we know it's just kind of business as usual for Neymar. But I really strongly agree with your point about how this weekend kind of cemented why Barcelona wanted him back, because I was really unclear about that. And you look at the signings they've made in recent memory, and it just felt like you have so much attacking talent. You have so many options, so much versatility. Why do you want Neymar back? And then you watch this game this weekend and you think like, oh yeah, right, because he knows the system and is very good, or at least was very good when he played for you, was expected to be that heir apparent. So maybe you bring him back and you expect him to elevate that game a little bit. But that has not happened, but it does beg the question from Michael Ginn, what exactly did happen to Neymar? It wasn't too long ago that he was widely considered the third or fourth best player in the world. Then it seems like he left Barca and everything went to hell. Was PSG just a bad fit? Did he plateau in terms of individual skill? Did we all just overestimate him while he was at Barcelona? How did everything seemingly go so wrong? Ryan, why don't you just answer that one fully and completely?
Okay, here it goes. I don't know. Obviously, I think PSG is a bad... I don't know. That was the answer. No, that's not the answer. I think PSG was a bad fit for him, but I think the main reason why we've seen this decline is injuries, to be honest. I mean, I was looking at his numbers on Transfermarkt, and he missed last season 180 days. The season before that, he missed 115 days. Mm-hmm. And we know he's sort of an individualist who doesn't necessarily fit into all sides and all manner of sides. Well, he probably would have done better for Barcelona than they did at the weekend, but his numbers are down as well. Like, I think last season it was 15 goals and 3 assists, which I think is down on his Barca numbers when he was sharing those numbers with one of the best, if not the best, attacking trident the game's ever seen. So my theory is that it's just injury has really derailed him, and maybe some off the field stuff that's been a bit unfortunate as well, sort of taking his focus away from where it should be.
I agree with that for the most part, because I do think injury is a massive, massive part of this, and that he tends to be on the sidelines for like the game against Man United with the handball last season. Like, he's not there for that game. Some of that is due to suspension and his attitude problems. Some of it is due to injury, certainly. I think the move to PSG was really ill-fated, or maybe not that wise of a decision in retrospect, or maybe even at the time, because but even at the time it seemed confusing to me, because the narrative was he's tired of playing second or third or maybe even fourth fiddle at Barcelona. He wants to be the main man. He wants to go and like lead a team to victory, and he chose PSG. And that's a team that are going to win League every year unless they completely explode. Already have a lot of solid talent who are capable of doing big things. And so essentially what you're saying is he's going to come in and we're going to win the Champions League, because that's the only thing they haven't done. And so he instantly is putting himself under pressure to make that happen. But the Champions League is a fickle mistress. You never know how it's going to go. One bad game in a knockout round and you're done. And so instantly you've got a ton of pressure that's going to be really difficult to achieve. But on top of that, you're playing a lot of games in Ligue 1, because that's where PSG play. I don't know if you knew that. They play in France. But it means like you're not going to get as strong of opposition consistently. You're going to get kicked a lot. You're going to mess around. Maybe you're going to be less focused a slight bit. League games aren't going to matter as much, at least not as consistently. And so it invites distraction. It invites you taking your eye off the ball a little bit in a way that maybe playing for a top tier Barcelona team, or had he gone to, not saying this was ever on the table, but like say he'd gone to Bayern Munich, say he goes and plays under Pep at Man City. Does he have that level of a distraction? Is he allowed to kind of slack off? No, probably not. And I think this is where I do come into the conspiracy of, I think he knew he couldn't go to Real Madrid straight from Barcelona, and I think that was the team that he felt like, I can go there, I can cement my reputation, I can take that team over because Ronaldo's going to leave eventually or sooner rather than later, and then that can be my squad. And the way things have gone for Madrid, they basically just kind of weren't in a position to make that happen this summer or when it seemed like it could have happened. And so I think all of those combine to put Neymar in a position where he is no longer this young, super talented, super exciting player. He is a relatively young, player who is now not in the top 3 in the world, maybe in the top 20. And I say that saying I don't know. I'm not even sure if he's there right now. And so it's a really surprising fall for a player who in 2014 I was sure was going to be the next massive thing. And now here we are.
I think you're spot on with the crux of it being that he went to PSG in the belief that he would be the difference maker to win in the Champions League. Mm-hmm. That hasn't worked out because, as you say, it is a fickle mistress.
Not so much.
Not quite predictable, those games you have to play to do that. And that doesn't necessarily revolve around one player making the difference.
Not so much.
And he's fallen out of the shop window a little bit because of that, hasn't he? And you just think if he was still at Barcelona, he'd still be in the conversation. If he was at Real Madrid, if he'd gone to Chelsea, if he'd done one of those other things, I think he'd be much higher in the conversation. But he still arguably have had those injuries. He still arguably would have had those setbacks. But still, he probably won't look back too fondly on that choice to go to France.
Yeah, it's definitely like Chaos Theory, Butterfly Effect, Sliding Doors, whatever other movies are in there. But if he's playing for a team where maybe he's told be less flashy, is he as flashy when he picks up some of those injuries? I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult. But at the same time, if PSG had won the Champions League and he were the exact same person, we're having an entirely different conversation. So it's the confusing nature of having hard opinions about soccer and how quickly those can change. But right now, I think we're both comfortable saying it has not worked so well for him. But we'll see if he kind of resurrects that career at PSG. But let's move away from highly valued, maybe not as successful players in Spain. And let's talk about Gareth Bale and Real Madrid. 2-2 draw with Villarreal. Thank you very much. This was yet another strange performance this weekend. Gareth Bale gets the brace, pulls it back for Real Madrid both times, and then gets sent off for 2 very, very stupid yellow cards. Why does Gareth Bale do the things he does, Ryan?
Because he's made of magic, Taylor. That's why.
Is that what it is? Is he just Welsh and magical?
He's Welsh and magical, very much so, like a dragon. I love the way that Real Madrid celebrate him. On their Twitter, they put these tweets saying he's won 14 titles, he's scored 104 goals, he's scored in 4 finals. He's our hero. It doesn't matter if he got sent off a little bit, just a tiny bit sent off. It's a shame that he's going to miss the next few games because it seems like he's really up for it at the moment, doesn't it?
I guess I saw some theory that I he's willing to play one game as long as he gets the next game to play golf, and he just wanted to make sure he wasn't going to have to play the next game by getting a red card here. But I was so confused by him because he comes in, or he starts, but both of his goals are just sort of really? We still haven't scored? Fine, I'll do it myself. And cutting inside, scoring from a super tight angle, being clutch in clutch moments. And then genuinely, yellow card in the 92nd minute and a yellow card in the 94th minute. Both of them, the first one is essentially for frustration. He's annoyed, he's been knocked around a little bit, and he kind of lunges into a tackle, gets that yellow. The second one, he lunges into another tackle to try to block a clearance that did not need to happen. It was basically Villarreal just trying to clear it out of their defensive third, and he just goes in, studs up, gets the yellow, gets sent off. And I found it really frustrating. I don't know why. I don't really have any rooting interest in Gareth Bale. I'm not a huge fan of Wales or anything like that. But just that he did seem he turns around, he scored 2 goals, he is going to be a key player, and then he still makes dumb decisions and gets sent off. It really is reminiscent of Neymar to me, that he can do great things and then has moments of stupidity that cloud the great things and sort of obscure the narrative from that game a bit.
Yeah, I still think he comes out positive, though. with the 2 goals then. And they weren't Granit Xhaka stupid, those fouls by any means. But what was interesting here, if you watch after he scored the goals, it wasn't like they were all jumping on him and celebrating. I think I spotted a Sergio Ramos high five. That was about it from both goals there. So still not striking me as Mr. Popular in the dressing room.
No, I think he was like fortunate in that both times it was scoring like the goal to equalize, so that it was then that like, oh, get the ball, let's run back and restart play. Like, we want to keep it going. But you're absolutely right that I did wonder, is that the case, or is it just like, I don't know, it's going to celebrate with me, so I'm just going to run back and not speak Spanish the whole way back.
Little column A, little column B, I think, for that one.
One more European game that I wanted to mention before we talk a little MLS. Rangers 0 at home, Celtic 2. Old Firm Derby goes to Celtic, as it has many times in years past. I don't even really want to talk so much about that game, because at this point it feels like, okay, yeah, SPL, Celtic going to win. Probably going to win most of the Old Firm Derbies. That seems to be the way it goes. But Ryan, we had a listener question last week about which formerly great or successful teams we would most like to see make a kind of resurgence or revival. And our answers were basically Rangers and then also Celtic, strangely. And then I think Daryl had Leeds and Wimbledon thrown in there as well. We talked about a few others like Milan. But Rangers and, again, Celtic were the 2 that we kind of most wanted to see return to that era of really challenging each other and pushing each other to be better, but then also competing in Europe and being exciting teams to expect big things from. I mean, that goes back to like 1967. So I'm not saying this is like
going back quite away from Celtic.
We certainly are. But like, I'm wondering if you have those same feelings towards Rangers and Celtic, or do you not necessarily care about the Scottish League and the Scottish teams? I don't mean that to be as like inflammatory as it sounds. It's just more so, I guess I'm genuinely interested because Daryl and I spend so much time together. We tend to have like similar ideas about similar things. And I'm never sure if that is because that is the kind of consensus idea or the thing that makes the most sense, or if it is just we bounce ideas off of each other. Whereas somebody who's not with us every day might be like, yeah, I don't really care about those 2 teams. Like, whatever, Scotland's fine.
I'm just surprised they play football in Scotland. I had no idea. No, in all seriousness, I think I'm reticent to sort of get behind that because it is a duopoly, and I don't like the way they dominate, or has been certainly historically a duopoly, and I don't like the way they dominate Scottish soccer in that way. But on the same side, on the European stage, I'd like to have seen Celtic go a little bit further, for example, this season than they did. It's really fun when you see them sort of upstage Barcelona or Milan, as we've seen in the past few seasons,
exactly.
in those group stage, right, those great little games they've had, and those really famous nights. Those are pretty wonderful, aren't they? So I'd like to see a return of more of those, definitely.
But I'm guessing that of the 4 teams I mentioned previously, if there were one team that you wanted to see competing in the Champions League, it's Leeds. I don't believe you. A little MLS now, Ryan. Would you rather start Philly, Atlanta, or would you rather start Seattle, LA?
Let's start East Coast, baby.
All right. Philadelphia Union 3, Atlanta United 1. I ended up watching most of this game because I did yard work all day yesterday and did not want to move last night. So I ended up watching a couple different MLS games. And I found this one sort of difficult to summarize for purposes of today's show because I don't want to do the thing I mentioned previously where you end up talking about the perceived bigger team because they lost and Atlanta get a lot of the headlines. But it's sort of tough to talk about this Philadelphia Union team because they did a little bit while they are like doing great and dominating in the East. It still felt a little bit like the Union Berlin strategy of be really, really physical when the situation requires. Don't really worry about possession too much, but be ruthlessly effective and efficient when there are moments to attack. And eventually you get the result. And that's pretty much how this went. That 1-1 for a good long while. Then it ends up with like 2 late goals for Philly. They get the win. So it's like well done, but it does feel like because of the way Philly kind of approached this one, probably a lot of the headlines and the narrative is going to be about some of the things that went wrong for Atlanta.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that Philly judged this one just right. It wasn't probably how most of us expected this one would go, given the run that Atlanta had been on, given the fact they've won like 2 championships in the past week or something, and and they won this one. The Campeones Cup, of course. Don't forget that one, and the US Open, of course.
Of course.
And they've been on a big win streak, and I think this is the right way to go about getting a result from given their form. Joseph Martinez, did you know he's been scoring a lot of goals, by the way?
No. Is that a thing he does?
It's been 13 in a row. And I wrote a preview for Yahoo about this game, and I did request that you back Joseph Martinez as a goal scorer. First goal scorer, I believe.
And how'd that work out?
I think it worked out all right.
That goal is something pretty. That goal, would that goal be beautiful?
Yes, more so than almost hitting the ball against your own face to score, yeah. The Josh Arden thing, it reminds me, do you remember there's that classic sort of own goal where the defender kicks it against his own face and it goes in? It just felt a little bit like that.
Yeah, yes, it did. I'm with you. It was a good reminder. But no, the goal that we're talking about, it's really, really pretty if you haven't seen it. Emerson Hyndman hustles to win the ball back. Nagby picks the ball up. He drives. He gets through a couple different Philly players, gets past, like at least 3 Union players, and then it's just a quick combination play, a series of 1-2s. But the last one of like Jose Martinez into Nagby with like the outside of the foot flick. Martinez with his first touch takes it around the goalie. The second is a finish. That goal was lovely. What I do want to talk about as well, though, is that was 1 goal for Martinez. He could have gotten 2 in the 80th minute, thereabouts. Jose Martinez, basically, there's miscommunication. It's a back pass that like Andre Blake, the Philly goalkeeper, thought was coming, but then wasn't ready for when it did come. So it ends up with Jose Martinez in a very strong shooting chance. He has a collision prior to that, so maybe this is where the kind of injury shout comes from. But he's able to stay on his feet, gets the loose ball, takes a one-time shot with his left foot, hits off the post, and goes out of bounds. Jose Martinez then falls over, and I thought for all the world like he'd torn his ACL. Like I thought he was done for the season right there. He's grabbing his ACL. He's grabbing the front and back of his knee. He's on the ground screaming and seems very, very, very hurt. Play stops, a lot of treatment, takes a long time, and then he comes back on basically 2 minutes later and ends up playing the game. And I talked to Felipe Cardenas, friend of the show, or Cardenas, excuse me, got to get the accent right. Friend of the show, covers Atlanta, and I asked him like, was he faking this one? And he said, no, like I think maybe they knocked knees, and that can be really painful and kind of surprising. But Ryan, you who tends to sniff out the absurd moments, was he faking to make up for a bad miss, or do you think there genuinely was a little bit of injury and then he comes back on and it's fine?
I think he collapsed in embarrassment.
You think so?
He missed an open goal.
I kind of do too. And I know that's not going to be a popular opinion, but just the way he goes down and then like stays down and then just comes right back in. And like he even does the like 3 second, like, oh, I'm still limping on it, but now I'm fine. Like, it's just like, I did that when I was 8 and I wanted to get out of gym class. I knew fake limp.
Maybe he felt a flash of pain and then he realized he'd missed an open goal quite reasonably badly.
Yeah.
And there was a slight angle, I suppose, but still it was an open goal.
Yeah.
And then I think the embarrassment and confusion and pain all combined to, I've got to fall on the floor right now.
Well, commiserations to Jose Martinez, wishing him a speedy recovery. I think he's fine. And well done, Philly, with a 3-1 win. But while we're talking about potentially embarrassing moments, I want to go to Seattle 4, LA Galaxy 3. A thrilling game. Christian rolled down with a late winner. But in terms of embarrassing moments, I'm going to say Fox Sports 1 embarrassed themselves a little bit because they showed the march to the match. The Seattle fans heading into the game. They always like to show that one because it's, bright, vibrant colors, but so many people, they want to kind of market their teams that tend to attract big numbers and big attendances. And then some Seattle fans pointed out, like, hey, I'm not at that game. I am, like, there's one person who's like, I'm pictured front and center of that march, and I am in Montana right now. And the reason for that is because Fox showed a march to the match from a different Seattle game because they didn't want to show any sort of protest banners or run that risk. And I find that to be, if not frustrating, then downright cowardly and weak from Fox, which maybe shouldn't be that big of a surprise. Ryan, did you catch this one, and what were your thoughts? Can you understand from a broadcast perspective why they wanted to avoid that?
No, that's what I don't understand. That's
Okay.
what I don't understand from a broadcast perspective. Because what interest does Fox have in not showing what's happening at that point?
Right? Yeah, it seems that felt to me like a broadcaster sort of not doing their job in towing the line and like not wanting us to show exactly what was happening on the ground, because whether or not you agree or disagree, I agree with the protest, but like whether or not you agree with or disagree with that, like you still need to be informed. Like you still want to know what's going on, and to not even show that's a weird moment of like, no, we don't even trust the viewer to decide for themselves. We're just going to make that decision for them.
It just feels like murky revisionist history almost, doesn't it? Like, you can understand why they won't show a streaker. They don't want to give that streaker publicity or whatnot. But this is not the same thing. This is literally not showing what's going on, and that's their job.
Yeah. A weak performance from Fox on that one. Less weak from Seattle, who were able to kind of keep pulling ahead, find a way to win. Jordan Morris, I said on Twitter, had, I think, my favorite goal I've ever seen him score, because it's like really quick decision making, but some really nice technical work, and then a really, really calm finish. He doesn't use his left foot in this sequence. That would have been the icing on the cake if he finished with his left foot. But he does have moments in this game when he sort of like cheats like he's going to use his right foot and then cuts back and crosses with his left, which is not a skill set we've seen from him all that often. And then, as I mentioned, Christian Roldan nets the late winner. He gets 2 goals in this game. Ryan, Daryl and I are not as big of fans of Jordan Morris or Christian Roldan when it comes to the national team. Like, I understand they're good servants for Seattle. They do good things. Obviously, this game shows that. But at national team level, I think both of us are less concerned, and this is similar to what I was asking you before about like I want your perspective on these things, from Josh Sargent to Neymar, to see where you are on them. Do you have thoughts on either of them playing for the national team in terms of, like, should they be there, their quality, what they've done in the past? Would you like to see them there, or do you not necessarily care because you hate the United States and only love England?
Hey, come on. You know I hate the United. No, I'm joking. Of course I don't. No, I think I've made my Morris thoughts clear. I think I've said it before. I think he is flattered by bad defending sometimes.
Yes.
I think he when it comes up against a good defence, isn't so hot. And I mean, credit to him for this goal through the middle, which was pretty good, and he put the Jets on to get to it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not thoroughly sold by him. I'm not sold by him as a national team player. I know how exciting it was when he broke through and whatnot, and all the Stanford stuff, and that's great. But yeah, I'm not sold. I'm not 100% sold. Is my answer.
I think I am glad to hear you say that, because I genuinely do respect your opinion on these things. But it's also kind of true. But it is where I am with him, is that, like, for every moment of solid player, good decision making, he has moments, and this is Roldan as well, where I do think he gets a little bit fortunate by some of the people that are playing around him. Last week, Morris is able to, like, set up a goal, but he does so by basically running into Zarek Valentin. And then Valentin puts in a really weak challenge, and Morris is able to keep the ball. A stronger defender, I think, puts a foot through that ball and wins it. And same thing with Roldan. I think he could have been knocked off the ball a little bit more readily if the Galaxy had been a bit more physical in dealing with him and just a little bit better in tracking him. Does he get those 2 goals? Does he have as successful as a game? And I think, again, I'm not trying to trash either one of them. It's just that I think routinely I have been burned by, like, yeah, they're doing it. They're so good for Seattle. Let's get them in that national team. And they come in and they look a little bit slower, or that touch is a little bit heavier. But now you're playing against other national teams who can deal with that and do have more capable defenders. And I think that's where you see their performances drop off a little bit. So while I began this asking you for your opinion, I'm glad it ended with me ranting about the 2 of them yet again.
I'm glad it did too. The other 2 things I wanted to talk about from this game is the Seattle first and fourth goals, both kind of carbon copies of an unmarked man at the back post, which is quite concerning for the Galaxy, I thought. But the other thing I wanted to say is Ibrahimovic getting that header off. Is there anyone better in the entire game? Is there anyone you'd rather have in the box on the end of that ball than Zlatan? I think he's just a master of getting ahead on those kind of things, isn't he?
He is, and I think about it for a moment, because, like, the only other big guy I've seen be almost unplayable in a game, this is going to sound really strange to say, is like Fernando Llorente against Ajax. They had no way to deal with how big he was in bringing it down. But Fernando Llorente is not Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and Ibrahimovic is, like, next level ability alone, I think is probably why I want him in there, even at his advanced age, but also just because he is such a ruthless person, and you know that, like, all you have to say is, hey, you're probably not going to score today because you haven't been very good, and he's going to score from like 60 yards out, or he's going to win some towering header to score just because you said he wouldn't. So I think just because I think I could get him psyched up enough to score a hat trick, I would definitely go Zlatan as that player in the box.
Yeah, agreed. I just think he's just so talismanic, I suppose is the word I'd use. Just the way he can get above any defender and always perfectly places his headers. It's such a skill. It's such an underrated skill as well.
It certainly is. Now all the Galaxy need are some defenders, and then maybe they won't have carbon copy goals, and maybe they'll look a little bit more stable. But to do that, they'll have to, I don't know, find a way to sign another DP that isn't technically a DP, which I'm sure they'll be able to do. But until they do that, we should probably talk about the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. To bring this episode to a close, we've got a few scouting reports to get to. If you sign up to support the show at any level, Daryl will assign you a young player. Can be an American, can be anybody else, depending on what your rooting interest might be. We've got a few scouting reports to get to, starting with Todd Brannan scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers. Todd Brannan is not scouting Todd Brannan, which is what I have written in this document. Ryan, since I have that typo in there, why don't you take it over from there with the Cameron Carter-Vickers scouting report?
Yeah, he continues his on-again, off-again relationship with Stoke. He started and played the full 90 in the shootout victory over Leeds United in the second round of the Carabao Cup during the week. He was then left off the matchday squad over the weekend in Stoke's 2-1 loss to Birmingham in the Championship. The loss leaves Stoke winless after 6 matches. Yikes in the Championship there. And propping up the rest of the league with 1 point and a -9 goal difference. Oh, it's not great. Boy.
It's not great, Ryan. It's not great. But at least they got to give 3 points to your favorite Leeds United. That's good. Cole Hamilton scouting Callum Connolly, the 21-year-old English defender/midfielder on loan at Lincoln City from Everton. Everton have sent Connolly to Lincoln City in League One on a season-long loan. We've covered that. This has been seen as a step down for Callum, who has had 5 previous loans to championship sides. 5 loans as a 21-year-old. Wow. That's a lot.
He's a journeyman by 21. That's rough, isn't it?
That's upsetting and accurate all at once.
Tyler Smith has been scouting Ian Hoffman, the 17-year-old German-American for Karlsruhe under-19s. He's been called up by Tab Ramos for the new under-20 cycle. He started all 4 games this season as a midfielder for the Karlsruhe under-19s. He's listed by US Soccer as a defender for their friendlies against the Slovenia under-19s and the UAE under-23s.
There we go. Jesse Frankel scouting Matteo Rotaccio, the 17-year-old American midfielder for Liverpool. Matteo went 90 and collected his first goal for the Liverpool U18s in their 4-3 win over the Manchester United U18s. See, United can't win anywhere. Prior to that appearance, it was announced that Matteo would be joining the US U20s for those aforementioned friendlies in early September. This is Matteo's first call-up to the U20s.
Very good. Russell Varner,
which is not surprising given that he is 17.
Yeah, that's good going, I'd say. Not bad.
Yeah, decent.
By the way, the under-18s Liverpool Man United, that's just the Premier League 2, isn't it?
I believe so.
No, it's not.
Yes.
That's the under-23s, isn't it? I'm confused.
Oh, yeah. Never mind.
Yeah.
Sorry. In your face, Ryan. And
I'll
also me
on.
for agreeing.
Russell Varner is scouting Alex Mendez, the 18-year-old American midfielder for Ajax. Young Ajax?
Young Ajax, yeah, I think.
Young Ajax?
you don't like Young Ajax?
Sure. Mendes made his second appearance for Young Ajax on August 30th when he came on in the 59th minute of a wild 3-2 win over Almere City. Mendes was credited with an assist on the game-tying goal in the 93rd minute, and Ajax would score again 2 minutes later to earn their second win of the season. Later that day, the 18-year-old was named by Jason Kreese, who still makes me think of South Park. Oh, Jason Kreese. To the 24-man roster for the USA Under-23s camp and subsequent match against Japan, his first call-up for the USA since the Under-20 World Cup earlier this summer.
Woo! Young Americans doing stuff, Ryan.
Right.
I know you're excited. Oscar Leon, scouting Michael Obafemi, 19-year-old Irish forward for Southampton. Obafemi scored against Fulham in a 1-0 League Cup win last Tuesday. In his second appearance of the season, the speedster latched onto a low cross from Redmond from the left wing to put the Saints up.
Very nice. Speedster. That's a good description.
Speedster.
Yeah. Alex Bush is scouting someone called Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Apparently he's a 21-year-old right back for Manchester United. Who knew? Aaron has played every minute for Man United through 4 league games and provided the game-winning assist for his former club, Crystal Palace, after tackling Zaha in stoppage time and the ball-finding Van Aanholt, who put it past De Gea. Ouch! On a more positive note, he's been called up to the England national team. Well done him, for the first time for their matches against Bulgaria and Kosovo. Good stuff.
Hey, pausing for a moment to ask about England. I saw the story that Gareth Southgate has a no jerks policy. Are you familiar with that, or is that a made up thing?
I'm not. That sounds wonderful, though.
I think it's the idea that he wants people who are going to fit within the team. So he makes a point of finding out players' dispositions, and if he thinks there's going to be a player that I don't think necessarily is has a difficult personality. I don't think it's quite that what's the word, like carte blanche, or like whatever, like blank check approach, or blanket approach. That's the word I'm looking for, not blank check. Apologies. Like, he then maybe doesn't look at them as hard as he would a player who maybe isn't quite at that level, but like tends to have a better personality. That felt like an interesting way to like maybe judge Miss America, but then also coach England at the same time. But maybe that's just more of an apocryphal story. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens.
There we go.
All right, Brian Hoysa scouting Sergino Dest, 18-year-old American right back for Ajax. Sergino Dest had a great Wednesday last week. Berhalter called him up to the September friendlies, and he started the second leg of Ajax's Champions League qualifier, in which they beat Apoel 2-0 to advance to the group stage. He then started this past weekend and played 65 minutes in Ajax's 4-1 win over Sparta Rotterdam.
Very nice. Let's do one more. Anurag Anjara is scouting Andrija Novakovic, who's a 22-year-old American striker, I should say, for the Reading Club, a.k.a. Reading. Novakovic has not featured for Reading's first team in any competition aside from the 5-minute cameo on the EFL Championship opening day. Since then, Reading have signed 2 forwards, meaning time will be even more limited. As a result, PEC Zvola are hoping to bring him in on a season-long loan. Hardly an upgrade over his previous club, Fortuna Sittard, but it's probably still better than playing for Reading's under-23s.
That checks out to me. And once again, lovely pronunciation from Ryan Bailey. And that lovely pronunciation brings this episode to a close. As always, a little bit lengthy, our weekend review. Ryan, I appreciate you taking all the time to talk to me about all of the many, many games from this past weekend.
Always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you very much, Jason.